Professionals spend nearly half the work week on written communication, so focus is important. With Grammarly as your AI writing partner, focus and quickly get through work with relevant real-time suggestions. And it works across 500,000 apps and websites, so you can sound more confident and persuasive wherever you write. 93% of professionals report that Grammarly helps them get more work done. Download Grammarly for free at grammarly.com/podcast. That's grammarly.com/podcast.
O'Reilly. Need a little help? O'Reilly Auto Parts can help. Need advice? We've got advice. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Exceptional customer service. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am your boy, 12 Kyle. Man, check this out. Listen, I'll never forget the day for as long as I live. It is probably one of the most important days of my life. The day was August 9th, 1999. I'll never forget it. Like I said, at that particular time, it was the most important day of my life. So I'm sitting there and everything is happening and it's moving so fast, but moving so slow at the same time. My girlfriend at the time was in labor, right? So she's in labor and she's having these contractions and they're telling her, to push. And what was cool for me was I could actually see the contractions on this little machine thing. And I'm like, oh, here comes a big one. Not really the best thing to say to a woman who's in labor, but, it's whatever. Nonetheless, the seminal moment happened when she gave birth to our oldest child, our son, Deion. And what was very important was the few moments after he was born. The doctor grabbed him, they cleaned him off, they put him on a scale to weigh him, and he urinated. But that wasn't important. It wasn't important that he pissed over just about everything over there. The doctor leans over and he looks across the room to me and my girlfriend, future wife, and he says, "What will you name this boy?" And that was an interesting question because at the time, he already had a name. See, from the time that we found out that we were having a son, we called him in the womb, we called him KJ. And KJ would be short for Kyle Jr. So he was going to be Kyle Jr. And it wasn't until that moment, because again, all through her pregnancy, when we would talk to him, we would say KJ, we would sing to him, we would read. Well, I didn't read, but Sharice would read to him and we would refer to him as KJ. And it wasn't until that moment where the doctor asked, what would we name him? And I looked at Sharice and she looked at me and she said, Deion. And I was like, Deion? And then I looked at her and I looked at him and I was like, yeah, Deion. And it stuck. And what was interesting was, I think naming a child is very important, obviously. For those of you who know or maybe don't know, we have 3 other children besides Deion. And naming a child is very important because your name particularly your first name, well, both names really, but your first name stays with you. It's how people identify you. My name was very unique for me at the time that I got the name because I had never, ever, throughout my childhood, encountered another kid named Kyle. Definitely didn't encounter any other black kids named Kyle. So I didn't encounter another black person named Kyle until the fall of 1991 when I embarked upon my college years at South Carolina State University. And there was not only a young man named Kyle, but a girl named Kyle too. And we were all black. But naming a child is very important. And so I always wanted to make sure that I got that part of parenthood correct, right? And so, again, we're looking at him, and we had never used the name Deion before. Now, full disclosure, we didn't pull the name Deion out of the sky. And even though he was born on the same day as another famous Deion Sanders, which I didn't know at the time, that's not where we got the name from. We got his name because that's my middle name. Well, technically it is. Well, here's the thing. I was born in New Jersey, right? And at the hospital where I was born, they came and they, I guess, asked my mom and dad what my name was going to be. And at the time that they came, she gave them my name, Kyle, Kyle. And what was interesting was she got the name from a coworker. Now, the coworker wasn't black. He was white. Again, I don't necessarily know that there were any black Kyles in 1972, especially none in Newark, New Jersey. So, but what happened was they printed my name on the birth certificate, but they were supposed to, they asked her what my middle name would be. And she said, well, I don't have a middle name for him just yet. Come back and I'll tell you what it is. And so the lady was supposed to come back. Well, I don't know, maybe she had to get off early or something. So she goes and they have my name printed up on the birth certificate. So my middle name never gets on the birth certificate. In fact, my middle name does not appear on any legal documents until I make it to what? Was it first grade? I think it was first grade. First grade. When I was enrolled into, I guess, kindergarten, I guess. No, it wasn't kindergarten. It had to be first grade. Kindergarten, first grade, I can't remember. Either way. The moral of that story is that it was very important as far as what my name was going to be. And naming a child is very important. And, that particular day, August 9th, 1999, it was very important that we gave him the name that he needed. At that particular moment, KJ didn't make any sense to me. Deion did. And that was his name. And what's interesting is his middle name is Kyle. So we flip-flop. So technically he's named after me, but, we don't have the same, our names aren't flowing like that. He's got my middle name. I've got his middle name. So it is what it is. I said all that to say this. There's an old saying that I used to hear all the time growing up in the South. And that saying was, the apple don't fall far from the tree. And what that means is that, like, a child, generally speaking, is not going to be that much different from their parents, right? So if you would have told me back in 1972 that I wouldn't be that much different from my parents, I'd roll with that 24/7 because I think I have the greatest parents in the world. And that being said, it becomes a little bit more scarier when you become a parent, right? So listen, if I told you that I named him Deion because I didn't want him to bear the burden of being the son of a famous podcaster, I'd be lying. But the flip side of it is, in theory, I wanted him to have his own identity. And really, as a parent, that's really what you should want. Now, listen, I don't have any problems with anybody who named their child after them. That being said, if your name is Bill Johnson, you probably don't want to name your child after you. If your name is William Smith, you probably don't want to name your child after you. If your name is John Brown, you probably don't want to name your child after you. And the reason being is not that those are bad names. The thing is that those are very common names. And I wish I had time to talk about how parents in particular, are killing these kids nowadays with these crazy ass names. But that's another subject for a whole nother podcast. We'll have to bookmark that. We'll come back to that. So yeah, I didn't know that the kid would be the son of a famous podcaster. I'm not a famous podcaster, but who knew that things would go the way that they went. Nonetheless, I wanted him to have his own identity. And so he has his name and I have mine. He's not a junior. And again, no knock to any juniors. I know plenty of dope juniors and seconds and thirds and fourths, actually. But you want your child to have their own identity, particularly if you are a celebrity, or at least one would think. So I said all that to say this. At the time of this recording, we're about to embark upon another basketball season in the NBA. And unless you've been hiding under a rock this year for the Los Angeles Lakers, superstar all-world player LeBron James will be playing alongside his son, LeBron James Jr. Now, he goes by Bronny, but his real name is LeBron James Jr. Now, keep in mind, I think Bronny is 20 years old, I think. So, his dad is coming up on 40. From all accounts, and I don't know Bronny from a can of paint, he seems like a very, very nice kid. He seems like a very respectable young man. He has his head on straight. He looks like he has great parents and he comes from a great background. That being said, when LeBron James knew that he was having a child, when he and his then high school sweetheart, now wife, when they knew that they were expecting a child, if it were me, there's no way I'm going to name my child after me. Because here's the thing. LeBron James, while he was not the mega star that he is today, he was a superstar. He was damn near a household name at the time that they had him. And he had him, I guess, relatively, he was probably, 20 years old, I guess, when he had him. So here's the thing. You knew that naming your son after you could be cool or it could be detrimental. It just depends on who you ask. But seeing LeBron and Bronny take the basketball court is something amazing. I think even as a father, what's interesting was I texted my 3 sons and I asked them about it, a couple of months ago. I was like, would you guys would have liked to have played with me if we were LeBron, if I was LeBron and you were Bronny? And each of them said yes. And that made me feel good as a father because, you want what's best for your kids, but you also want to feel the love from your kids. And while me and my sons in particular, we talk a lot of trash and we go at it and we're very, very competitive in this house. It felt good to get that text message. That being said, Bronny, as well as a bunch of other kids like him who are, children to celebrities, I don't want to say they've got the deck stacked against them, but, they're going to have to overcome some things. And so in talking about the apple not falling far from the tree, what happens when your child goes into your profession? That's the thing that I kind of want to examine on this particular episode of the 12 Kyle podcast. Because here's the thing. My profession, it's cool. But I don't think any of my kids are going to do what I do for a living. If they did, it'd be cool. I mean, we could do it together. That being said, probably not going to happen. And if it does, I'd be down to work with them. But the reality is, it's probably not going to happen. And trust me, I'm super cool with that. But what happens when you have a child and your child literally and figuratively follows into your footsteps? Again, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, or does it? Let's take a quick commercial break. And on the other side, I'll give you a couple of examples of children who are following in their parents' footsteps and whether or not it's going to, be beneficial or not. Sit tight. We'll be back in just a second.
Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at TurboTax.com/beat your price. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at TurboTax.com/beat your price.
Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at TurboTax.com/beat your price. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at TurboTax.com/beat your price.
Are you feeling nostalgic for the golden eras of rap and soul music? If so, tune in to the Rap Soul Podcast. We are your weekly journey through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, spotlighting the music and the hidden gems that shaped the soundtrack of our lives. From the powerful beats to the soulful melodies, we bring you the best of the past with fresh insights and stories. Rediscover the music that defined a generation. Subscribe to the Rap Soul Podcast and enjoy the vibes. And just like that, we are back. Thanks again for checking out the 12 Kyle podcast. I am your boy 12 Kyle, and we're talking about the apple not falling far from the tree. Before the break, I told you that we were going to talk about some kids, and this is all coming on, the idea and the thing that we're looking at now as far as LeBron James Jr. playing in the National Basketball Association with his father, LeBron James Sr. So before I even get into that, let me talk a little bit about Bronny. Again, if you're familiar with Bronny and his story, he was a really good high school player, not the best. He went to college for a year. He played his college ball at the University of Southern California. And he had a below average season for a freshman. He did have a medical issue. He had suffered cardiac arrest on a basketball court and subsequently missed, I want to say, half of his freshman year. And he was able to get clearance from the doctors and he resumed play and what have you. And then after his freshman year ended, he decided to enter into the NBA draft, and he was subsequently drafted in the second round by the team that employs his father, the LA Lakers, and thus having the opportunity to take the floor with his father. And it's interesting because I saw a clip of them during the preseason take the floor together, and he walked out on the court and it said James for his dad, and it said James Jr. on Bronny's jersey. And I was proud for LeBron. And I know there's a lot of people that have an issue with, the nepotism and how LeBron, I don't know, coerced the Lakers to draft his son. Listen, let me let you in on a little secret. If any of you who are listening or watching this podcast, if you could put your child in a situation where they could fulfill their dreams and be where they wanted to be in life, you do it in a heartbeat. There's none of you that would say, oh, well, wait a minute, I think you got to pay your dues first. No, Nobody cares about nepotism. Nepotism runs the world. We don't care. You say you care, but you don't care. We want the best for our children. I don't know any parent that doesn't. And so whether or not your last name is James or your last name is Kyle, it doesn't matter. You want what's best for your children, so you're going to put them in the best situation that you feel will help them succeed. Now, whether or not Bronny James succeeds on a basketball court or not, it's not the issue. Ultimately, he gets to play with his dad. And that's something that both he and his father wanted. And for me, I can't be mad at it. I won't be mad at it. I always find it interesting, though, when kids of celebrities, athletes, entertainers, if you will, when they follow in their parents' footsteps. Again, Bronny James is no exception. He wanted to play basketball. He was around basketball all his life, so naturally he's probably going to gravitate towards basketball. And another person that comes to mind, Blue Ivy Carter. Blue Ivy Carter is what? She's 13? Yeah, she's 13. She's only, I think she's like a month younger than my daughter Skylar. Now, Blue Ivy's parents are way more famous than me and Sharice. And they got way more money than we do. But I got a chance to kind of watch Blue Ivy grow a little bit from afar. I don't really follow her or her mother for that matter. But I did see probably within the last year as Beyonce was on tour, Blue Ivy would take the stage with her. Now, to be honest, I don't know if Blue Ivy can sing. She appears to be able to dance pretty well. But, being the child of, Beyonce Carter and Jay-Z Carter, it's interesting because you're in show business. And I think it's safe to say that, your parents, they got a couple of dollars, right? So do you necessarily need to go into show business as well? And again, I'm saying this with her being 13. I don't know what she's going to do with her life. She may want to be a veterinarian. Who knows? But she's probably trending toward the idea of, at the very least, doing something in show business. Again, I don't know if she can sing. I don't know if she can sing as well as her mom. I don't know if she can sing as well as her aunt. I don't even know if she can rap as well as her father. But she's Blue Ivy, and she's gotten musical producer credits already. I'm sure she gets a nice sized allowance. That's probably more than what most of us make for a living. And she's straight money wise. And if I'm not mistaken, she has 2 siblings. I've never seen those little kids. Somebody, you guys tell me whether I know their names, but I've never seen those kids. I think they still exist. Not that they died or anything. I've never seen them. So who knows? Maybe, just maybe, they form a trio and they become the new Run DMC. I don't know. But if you're Sean Carter and you're Beyonce Carter, are you really pushing Blue Ivy into the music industry? That's a slippery slope, because one thing we do know, the music industry is very, very ravenous. It is very dangerous. It is a very, very slimy and grimy industry. But that being said, with parents like those, they could teach her the ropes. They could help her avoid the pitfalls that comes with that. So you just never know. Who else? Charlie Woods. Charlie Woods. Now, some of you may not be familiar with Charlie Woods. Charlie Woods is the son of one Tiger Woods. And ironically, Charlie Woods is a golfer. And from what I understand, he's pretty damn good. Now, Charlie's got to be, my guess is about 14 or 15. Forgive me for not looking it up. But I will say this much. While he's probably not as good as his dad was at this age, because his dad was incredible at this age. That being said, he's got a leg up on the competition. But if I'm Tiger, do I really want my son to play golf? Here's the thing. It's kind of like the same thing with Bronny and the same thing with Blue Ivy. This is what they've seen. This is what they've grown up around. So naturally, I'm sure the first time Charlie swung a golf club, they cheered him on. And then he got good and he probably started taking lessons and his dad showed him so many things. And here's the thing, he can never or will never be the golfer that his dad is. And again, I don't know how good he is or he isn't. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's probably never going to be as good as his dad. I think I can say the same about Bronny because Tiger and LeBron, who ironically were both born on December 30th, are probably once in a generation type athletes. They don't make golfers like Tiger Woods. They don't make basketball players like LeBron James. You could make a case that Tiger Woods is one of the greatest, if not the greatest golfer to ever live. I know he doesn't have the majors, but if you add all of his intangibles, you could make a case that if Tiger Woods isn't the greatest golfer to ever live, he's one of them. And the same can be said for LeBron. There are a lot of people who think that LeBron James is the greatest basketball player ever. Who am I to tell you that you're lying or that you're wrong? The guy's incredible, and he's still doing it at a high level at 39 years of age at the time of this recording. So it's natural that your kids want to follow in your footsteps, but what about if they don't succeed? That's the thing. Two other kids I want to mention, Jaden and Willow Smith. Now, these kids, I want to say they are probably in their late teens, maybe early 20s, I guess. I'm not sure. And again, I didn't look it up, so don't knock me out. But obviously, these are the children of Will and Jada Smith. These kids are talented. I know that, Jaden has done a lot of acting. Willow has done music. And their parents are both, phenomenal actors. Will Smith is one of the greatest actors of his generation. He's box office. I mean, he had his situation with Chris Rock, and from all accounts, it seems that he's bounced back as far as at the box office. Jada's not as popular as far as movies are concerned, but she's a really good actress. Their personal lives have been talked about tremendously, and I'm not going to get into their personal life, but they've got some things going on at the crib. So really for their kids to see all of that and really be beyond that and really focused in on what it is that they're doing, I think says a lot. Again, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Do you want your kids in the show business? I don't necessarily know that they don't. And, again, Will and Jada can tell them more about what to do or what not to do in show business than probably anybody else could. So is that a bad thing? Probably not. In conclusion, I think it's okay that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I think what we always want to do is just remind ourselves that what you're looking at, one, isn't the finished product. So when Bronny takes the basketball court this year, or when Charlie tees it up on the golf course, that's not Tiger, and that's not LeBron. That's not LeBron Sr. These are their children. And there's always a certain level of expectation that comes with being the child of a star. But when your parents are not just stars, when your parents are mega stars and you're in the same line of work as them, that's pressure. Now, to a kid like Bronny, he may not feel any pressure. He may say, well, hey, look, I love to play basketball. I just want to get out there and have fun and do my thing. And he can very well much so do that. Same goes for everybody else that I mentioned. But again, you're always going to be compared to your parents. It's not necessarily a bad thing because if we remove the money, if we remove the fame, it's no different. As a parent, to some degree, and it's not often talked about, but to some degree, we are judged by the success or lack thereof of our kids. As parents, we brag about our kids. I brag about mine all the time, but I'm also constantly pushing them too. And it's not that I'm pushing them to become CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. I'm pushing them to be better than me. Not as far as financial, not as far as educational, not as far as anything else, but I want them to enjoy life. I know life won't be a smooth road, but I'm trying to make sure that they don't hit the bumps and the potholes that I did. And I hit probably some of the bumps and the potholes because I wasn't listening, or maybe because my parents just didn't know to tell me. But I've seen some things and I've been through a lot of stuff, so I can tell them like, hey, don't do this. You can do this. Go over here. Don't go over there. That type of thing. And the same applies for LeBron. And the same applies for Will and Jada. And the same applies for Jay-Z and Beyonce. We all know different. We all are parents. And again, at the end of the day, you want to see your children succeed. If they choose your field of profession, then your wants and your desires not necessarily become something that you want for them, for yourself. You want it for them even more because you want to see them do and live out their dreams. And when a parent can see their children live out their dreams, that's the ultimate thing for us as a parent. Because as parents, we want what's best for our kids. Period, point blank. It doesn't matter if your kid is on TV, on movies, on stage, on a basketball court, on a golf course, or working at the job, downtown, or working at the library, or working at the school. We all want to see our children succeed. And for me, I think it was very important for me to, at least in my mind, make the right choice as far as naming this child and the subsequent 3 others that came after them, but also seeing them live out their dreams because that's what my parents wanted for me, and I want even more for my kids. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Thanks for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. The podcast drops every Thursday and every Sunday at midnight. And also, we have a baby, a new baby. Not literally, but we have a new baby. It's called the Rap Soul Podcast. The Rap Soul Podcast is the intersection of rap, soul, hip-hop, R&B music, and artists from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. Please check it out. You can find the podcast wherever you found this podcast. Subscribe, and share it with a friend who loves music, because that's what it is. As far as this podcast, you can catch us on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on the 12 Kyle podcast on YouTube. Hit the notification button. That way you get notified anytime we drop new episodes. You can hit us up on social media. 12 Kyle podcast across the board on Twitter X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, as well as the TikTok. And if you'd like to contribute to us financially, hit us up. $TWELVEKYLE. Also, if you look in the description box, there is a link that says merch. Click that link. You can get 12 Kyle podcast merch. That's t-shirts, hoodies, posters, as well as coffee mugs like the one I'm holding right here. Also, if you'd like to continue this discussion on our Reddit page, go to Reddit /12 Kyle podcast. Again, that's going to do it for me. I am your boy 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5,000.
Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice.